Hi, I'm Terry Glakoff, and this is one of the true signs of spring, motorcycles. But with all the thrills, there's also a set of deadly odds. So what's being done to make the sport safer? Jari Brody reports.
Motorcycling, cruising along, exposed to the open air, it's a way of staying close to nature while going it one better.
Motorbiking, motorbiking, motorcycling, motorbiking. I'm moving on the Queens Highway, looking like a streak of lightning.
There's nothing like riding a motorcycle and going down the road. It's something that you can't imagine unless you've done it. You can smell the sensation, you can feel it, you can taste it. It's amazing.
It's hard to beat the thrill of riding this fast and this freely. In fact, people who do it say motorcycling can feel as good as a new romance. But this infatuation can turn out to be a fatal attraction.
He was going too fast for the corner and flew from the point of impact on the bridge all the way to the top of the building.
The odds of walking away from an accident like this lean heavily against you, and they're getting steadily worse. In 1986, deaths involving motorcycles leapt 36%. In 1987, the last year's statistics are available, the number of motorcycle drivers killed rose another 22%. The statistics are even worse for the young. While less than 3% of all riders are under 20 years old, almost a quarter of all accident victims are teenagers. Glenn Wegner was 17 years old when he decided to get his motorcycle license. He applied for his learner's permit, and 6 days later, it happened.
I hit a curb and did straight over onto, there was a rock on the ground, a big rock. I landed on the rock with a bike on top of me. I broke my back and the spine in 4 places, so I'm T1 paraplegic. It's from about here down, I cannot feel touch. And on my back, it's a little bit lower, or a little bit higher.
As much as he didn't think about the odds when he climbed onto his bike 4 years ago, Glenn believes he'll beat the new set of odds he faces. He refuses to accept that he'll probably never walk again.
None of the doctors, none of the nurses, nobody ever said that I would not walk. So there may be a chance, I'm not sure. So hopefully there is. I can try.
But hope seems a fragile thing tested against what happens when a body is hurled from a motorcycle, an engine on wheels.
I wondered a lot on what I was going to do, how I was going to get around and get about, but it, for some reason, didn't bother me a lot. I don't know, it was like I was in a daze going, okay, this is what I got to do.
Hi, Dean.
Hi.
How's the leg doing?
Not too bad.
I could think of ways I would rather make a living than look after young people who are tearing their limbs off.
Dr. Robert Meek is an orthopedic surgeon with the trauma unit at Vancouver General Hospital.
I think some people in the world who are dealing with motorcycle injuries and other young people's injuries now don't like to call them accidents anymore, any more than it's accidental if you shoot yourself through the head in Russian roulette. In our particular business here, we're looking after the bone injuries, and there's very serious extremity injuries in both the upper and lower extremity. I think it's largely an injury of the young male who's incautious and macho, and they injure themselves in other ways too, and motorcycles just happen to be one way. And although they may ride again, I think they ride much more cautiously. We don't see very many repeat serious motorcycle injuries.
I rode dirt bike for 3 years, and I'd never really seriously wiped out. I've always jumped off the bike or threw it away from me. I was too confident. I didn't know all the angles of the street bikes, because they do handle differently, and they are a little bit harder to control than a dirt bike.
I've seen people lose their legs, lose their lives. Physical damage is done to people that's just horrendous.
Peter Jack is the provincial organizer for the BC Coalition of Motorcyclists, a lobby group that advocates motorcycle safety. It's an issue Jack feels has been ignored far too long.
You know, there's no reason just because we choose this sport as motorcycling why we should be out there running the gauntlet. You know, we have just as much right on that road as any other motorist. But all we're asking is that the people in the general public just be aware that we're back on the road. If you're driving down the road obeying the speed limit and somebody pulls out in front of you off a side street, you don't have a chance. You're there. You're into the car and that's it.
Flew over the freeway and landed in the middle of the freeway on the westbound lane. And a girl came along and she thought I was a garbage bag and she ran over me with her car at 60 miles an hour.
Victor.
Yes.
How you doing?
Good.
Victor Willette is a veteran motorcyclist, but even 10 years of experience couldn't outmatch the oncoming car, nor did it help him avoid being initially squeezed onto gravel by a driver who apparently didn't see him.
We're not fighting a war here. Those are supposed to be pleasure machines. Just hopefully people are cautious and don't go out there with the intention of running over bikers and just pay attention.
Even so, Victor believes inexperience can be as dangerous as an unaware driver.
I'm a firm believer that a 16-year-old shouldn't have a 1200cc motorcycle. They are not aware of what's underneath them. You're sitting with 143 horse, 150 horsepower on a machine that weighs 600 pounds. That's an exploding bomb. They don't need to go 200 miles an hour.
That pretty much describes a whole new generation of motorcycles that technology has made possible over the last 10 years. With names like Hurricane and Ninja, these so-called superbikes can bullet from 0 to 60 in under 4 seconds. And under current legislation, there's nothing to stop a newly licensed motorcyclist from walking into a store and buying one. Jerry Alley and George Conady are salesmen at Richmond Motorcycles.
Have you ever said to someone that they shouldn't buy a bike because the bike might be a little bit beyond their skill?
Yeah, I do it all the time, actually. A lot of people want a particular kind of motorcycle, and that might be too much for them. And I generally don't find people resist too much when I recommend that they start on something smaller if they're not experienced to handle that.
If he won't go to a smaller bike and he absolutely wants a larger bike, it's up to me to sell him the bike because he'll buy it where if I don't sell it to him. Therefore, I lose my commission.
They'd like to see the government impose guidelines.
Yeah, I'd like to see mandatory training. I think that would do a lot. Or tiered licensing like they do in England, where you start off on a smaller bike and as you gain experience you graduate to bigger and bigger motorcycles. That would make the most sense to me.
BC imposes only one restriction on newly granted full licenses. A person who tests on a bike smaller than 200 cc's is forbidden to carry passengers. A lot of people, including motorcycle salesmen, say that's not tough enough.
They want Big Brother to hold the hand of the purchaser and prohibit him from maybe going out and doing something irresponsible. Is that what you're suggesting?
That's what they're suggesting. What's your response to that?
I think you just heard it.
Still, Angus Ree, BC's Solicitor General, doesn't rule out tiered licensing altogether.
It's being looked at here. Some years ago, the government looked at that as an option and ruled it out at that time. I want to revisit anything I can to make people safe on the highway.
It's not a Band-Aid that's going to solve all the problems.
Brian Lowes is the president of the BC Safety Council.
When we talk about motorcycle accidents, we have to focus on car drivers because in the majority of collisions, it's the car driver that caused the accident.
Lowes also challenges the logic of testing new drivers in parking lots instead of on the road and questions the qualifications of the license examiners themselves.
They may not be riding a bike every day, but they are qualified riders. In other words, they're qualified to ride a bike, the people that are testing.
We do not have a requirement in place that a licensed examiner hold the class of license that they are testing, because presumably because that would cost a lot more money than the process that's in place at this point in time.
How qualified do you have to be to test the person? Must you be a bike rider for 1 year, 2 years, 10 years before you are qualified to test somebody?
We're paying the bills now out of the Ministry of Health's budget, and we prefer to pay the bills after the accident occurs as opposed to paying the bills to prevent them. And that's a dollar and cents thing that our society has to live with.
Although he doesn't blame anyone but himself, it is the reality that Glenn Wegner lives with every day. And as long as attitudes and policies remain as they are, it's a reality that will continue.
Were you going too fast?
I might have been. I don't know. I can't say. I was in a coma for 3 weeks, and I don't remember a thing because nobody's told me, and I haven't even asked. I don't really care to remember the bike.
For Pacific Report, I'm Jari Brody.
May will be Motorcycle Awareness Month. The BC Coalition of Motorcyclists will sponsor a benefit ride to promote motorcycle safety on Saturday, May the 6th in New Westminster. When Pacific Report returns, you'll meet the people who make you laugh on the radio comedy show Double Exposure. After this.